I've given up on OBS Streamlabs. I'm not going to put any more effort into setting all these filters and everything if it just keeps restarting with everything all cleared out. So I'm going to keep this to audio only. I know that'll disappoint you, but that's the way it goes. I'm going to go ahead and read an article published in the Kenosha County Eye on the gun charge. Somebody has done an in-depth study of the history of this gun law, the whole issue with the minor in possession deal. It was published on October 17th, and probably should have got to it sooner than this, but I've been busy. At any rate, before anybody gets all worked up that, well, by not doing a video on this, you deprive the defense of a good argument. Well, first of all, I doubt the defense cares what I say about anything. Second of all, this was published in a local newspaper in Kenosha. So, believe me, people on Kyle's defense team know about this article. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
All right, an in-depth look into Rittenhouse's gun charge. The prosecution in the Kyle Rittenhouse case has worked hard to create the myth that Rittenhouse was illegally carrying a rifle. We've heard that a whole bunch of times, right? They make the claim all the time about him illegally carrying a rifle. Everybody's been saying that. That his defense is a loophole which applies only to hunting. An examination of the legislative history of the law shows the prosecution is in error. Well, that's no big shock. The statute 948.60 is the crux of the matter. While the title seems clear, possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18, the first section of the law explains the law does not apply to all weapons, but only certain specific weapons which are defined in the law. And by the way, I've covered this very thoroughly in some of my past videos. So if you're interested in this more, go back and watch some of my older videos on this. Most weapons are excluded from the definition. The law only regulates the possession of concealable weapons and not all concealable weapons. All weapons are dangerous or they are not considered weapons. The law only applies to the weapons listed. Knives are not included in the law. Bows and arrows are not included. Crossbows are not included. Blowguns are not included. Clubs are not included. Only concealable firearms are included. Actually, no, I think they had brass knuckles and things like that in there as well. Rifles and shotguns are excluded from any firearm loaded or unloaded by the exception in 3C, except for short-barreled rifles and shotguns, which are unusual and concealable. That has been the case in Wisconsin law since 1878. It is not a recent change, nor has it been limited to hunting. The legislative history of the law makes clear how this language evolved. Wisconsin first restricted the carry of concealed weapons in 1872. And it quotes here, Wisconsin has had a long yet somewhat erratic tradition of gun ownership and use, whether for hunting, sport, or security. The state's early settlers openly carried weapons as tools for sustenance and survival. Conversely, many other people condemned concealed weapons as tools of cowards and impulsive criminals, leading to their ban in Wisconsin in 1872. The law only applied to certain weapons and excluded people who were carrying for self-defense. In 1878, it was extended to all concealed weapons, without the self-defense exception, although the exception for peace officers was rather broad. Wisconsin has a long history of treating concealed weapons differently from weapons which are not concealed. The theory has been that weapons which are carried openly are less of a threat. If people wish to avoid an armed person who is carrying openly, they can do so. ADA Binger, boo, boo, was trying to make a different point when he acknowledged this in the Rittenhouse hearing on September 17th. It is designed to deter people. It is designed to threaten others, to let them know Don't mess with me. Look what I've got. And as I mentioned in my other video, that's perfectly okay. I mean, that's what you want. That's called a deterrent. Deterrents prevent crime. You think the anti-Kyles would give him any deference if he had carried a concealed firearm, pulled it out, and shot people? You really think that they would change their minds? It would be worse. In 1955, the law was codified in Wisconsin as statute section 941.23. In the same year, Wisconsin passed the precursor of the current age restriction statute, 94860, statute section 941.22. The statute prohibited people under the age of 18 from possessing pistols, defined as any firearm with a barrel length less than 12 inches. In other words, concealable firearms. There was an exception for pistols provided by parents for supervised target shooting. In 1984, the legislature restricted unsupervised possession of all firearms outside of family-owned land and unsupervised hunting outside of family land by graduated age restrictions of persons under 16 years of age. Statute 29.227 restricted hunting and possession and control of firearms as separate issues. And this is really important because one of the things that people are doing is they're conflating hunting and possession. They're not the same thing. They are to be treated differently. And keep in mind the difference between hunting and possession. With hunting, the implication is that you are going to be firing the weapon. With possession, you're simply transporting the rifle from one place to another. In 1987, the legislature expanded the restrictions on the possession of concealable weapons by those under 18, incorporating the previous law, 941.22, into the new designation of the current 948.60. It maintained the definition of firearms, which are prohibited to people under the age of 18, as any firearm having a barrel length of 12 inches or less, and added a list of unusual concealable weapons. In 1991, the legislature moved the wording for concealable firearms from the definition to an exception, which shows firearms which are not concealable are not included in the dangerous weapon definition. The age restriction scheme created in 1984 continued to apply. The any firearm with a barrel less than 12 inches definition was retained. The moving of the language from the definition to an exception created a strange anomaly in the law. Short-barreled rifles and shotguns are strictly regulated under both state and federal law. Rifles are considered short-barreled if the barrel is less than 16 inches. Shotguns are considered short-barreled if the barrel is less than 18 inches. The exception in 948.60 appears to create an exception for persons under the age of 18. They can possess short-barreled rifles and shotguns if the barrel is longer than 12 inches. In 1998, Wisconsin added the constitutional amendment protecting the right to keep and bear arms. Kind of sounds familiar. The amendment makes clear the purpose of bearing arms includes security and defense. And I am assuming this is from the Constitution. The people have the right to keep and bear arms for security, defense, hunting, recreation, or any other lawful purpose. In 2005, as legal short-barreled rifles and shotguns became increasingly popular, the legislature clarified 948.60. The exception is changed from firearms, which have a barrel length more than 12 inches, to rifles and shotguns, which are not short-barreled rifles and shotguns. The age restriction scheme for persons under the age of 16 remains in place. The thrust of the law remains unchanged. Concealable firearms are included in the definition of what are considered dangerous weapons for people under the age of 18. People from 16 to 18 can possess and carry rifles and shotguns as long as they are not concealable. From age 18 to 21, people can openly carry concealable firearms as well as rifles and shotguns. Age 21 and older, people can obtain a permit to carry weapons concealed. There is no hunting loophole in the law. The law merely continues the long tradition in Wisconsin law of prohibiting people under the age of 18 from possessing certain concealable weapons. It maintains the age restriction scheme for openly carried firearms put in place in 1984, which only restricts people under the age of 16. This is the author, Dean Weingarten. And boy, he looks familiar. I was thinking, where have I seen this guy before? And I remember Ammo Land. He writes a lot of articles for Ammo Land, one of my favorite online blogs, forums, whatever you want to call it. At any rate, it says here, Dean Weingarten has been a peace officer and a military officer. He grew up in Wisconsin. Wouldn't it be great if Court TV would bring people from Wisconsin to talk about the trial? He was on the University of Wisconsin pistol team for 4 years. He obviously knows his stuff. And good article. Like my video, subscribe to my channel.